How are you? Fine. How you doing?
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are you at the salaries while you're attending? Okay. Maybe I'll go a long ways to open up the communications lines. Got to try, right?
Yes. Those are probably the best of the ones we have.
That I'm dropping all over the floor.
Yeah. These are the most reliable ones. Actually, I think I have one to get going. Yep. Yep. It's not how it's supposed to be. We're over. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Tech team, we're ready.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Monday, fun day.
Good morning. My name is Elliot Payne. I'm the president of Minneapolis City Council. I'm going to call this special meeting for Monday, September 8th, and will ask the clerk to call the roll to provide the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Councilmember Chavez.
Present.
Councilmember Vital.
Present.
Councilmember Ellison is absent. Councilmember Koski.
Present.
Councilmember Wansley.
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Present.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Present.
Councilmember Cashman is absent. Councilmember Osman is absent. Vice President Chugtai.
Present.
President Payne.
Present.
There are 10 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. There is one item before us today, as reflected in the mayoral call for this special meeting, to meet for a closed session to discuss a litigation matter. I will recognize City Attorney Anderson to provide the legal basis for the requested closed session.
Thank you, Council President. Council members, the next item on the agenda is an attorney-client privilege briefing by your attorneys to discuss litigation strategy and potential litigation against Hamoudi Sabri and any other necessary related or responsible parties concerning the property located at 2716 Lake Street East, 2932 28th Avenue South. Under the open meeting law, Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3B, the council may, upon a proper motion, close the meeting for the purposes of attorney-client communication as permitted by the attorney-client privilege. In considering the motion, the council should weigh the right of the public to know what its government is doing against the need of the city to preserve the confidentiality of its discussions with its attorneys.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. I move that our public meeting be closed as authorized under the provisions of the open meeting law, specifically Minnesota statute section 13D.05, for the purpose of receiving a briefing on potential litigation concerning the property located at 2716 East Lake Street and 2932 28th Avenue South. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That carries, and we will now close the public portion of our meeting and convene in closed session. For the viewing public, I will note that the broadcast of this meeting will continue, and the City Council will reconvene in public after we have concluded the closed session. Thank you. 1 minute.
Sounds good. You're ready to go whenever.
The time is now 11:56, and the City Council has reconvened in open session following our closed session. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll to prove the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Councilmember Chavez.
Present.
Councilmember Vita.
Present.
Councilmember Ellison is absent. Councilmember Koski.
Present.
Councilmember Wansley.
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Present.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Present.
Councilmember Cashman is absent. Councilmember Osmond.
Present.
Vice President Chugtai.
Present.
President Payne.
Present.
There are 11 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. We have reconvened from closed session, and I will recognize Vice President Chugtai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a question for staff as a follow-up to the closed session briefing that the body received. Can someone from either the city attorney's office or perhaps the COO or anyone from the administration just clarify the difference between law enforcement or difference in law enforcement presence, whether this motion or the motion that will be coming up shortly, whether it's approved or not, what's the difference in law enforcement presence with either of those outcomes?
Welcome, Ms. Enslin.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I believe the question was, what would be the difference in law enforcement presence if the council were to approve versus not approve at the site? Unfortunately, that is all situational, so I can't give a specific answer as to what the different presence would be. It would depend on what decisions were made following either approval or denial of the motion as to what the next steps would be for the law enforcement going forward.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Council President Payne. I have a question for the City Attorney's Office. Can you clarify the process or who brought the idea of this lawsuit forward? I'd just like to understand how this process usually works.
Well, this, Councilmember, this, the process that was gone through to get to putting forward the idea of moving forward with this lawsuit was done internally by the City Attorney's Office based on legal research and reviewing the applicable statutes and the remedies offered under the statutes.
So this
one
is
of which is which.
To clarify, this is a request from the City Attorney's Office, and there was not a request from the Mayor's administration.
This was created by the City Attorney's Office, correct? This as an avenue for moving forward with this, and that's based directly on the state statute on public health nuisance.
I'd like to get clarification on that over a meeting, because I had a meeting with City Attorney Anderson where I asked this particular question, and this answer isn't, from my understanding, what I received. So I'd like to get more understanding of how we got to this point.
Well, I can say candidly, I reviewed the statute. I noted that there is a legal recourse within the statute. I brought it to the attention of others within our office, and we evaluated this as an option for moving forward with a remedy for the situation. So I candidly can say that this was done based on the research of our office.
Thank you. I'd like clarification, I guess, from other folks involved as well. I'd like a question on, do you know how much shelter availability there is right now?
at this instance,
Yes.
Councilmember, I can't say as I stand here right now.
Okay.
That is a fluid number, and so at any given point in time, that would change, not only on the day but on the hour. So I have been in closed session and don't have that information today as I stand here.
And we have staff here who is present who does work on homelessness outreach. So if staff can please come up here and answer that question, that would be very important. Thank you.
And while staff is coming up, I see our city attorney in priority queue.
Sure, Council President, council members. I mean, we in the city attorney's office work very, very closely with our clients, and there's a situation here that the normal enforcement tools were not working. And so when we had that sort of situation, we work closely with our clients, and we determined that there was a legal solution that we did research and came with that solution.
Director Velazquez.
Good morning, Council President Payne, Councilmember Chavez. So in terms of shelter availability, Hennepin County maintains a dashboard, a publicly facing dashboard that shows the number of shelter spaces that are available. That data is available with basically a one-day delay. And according to this morning's information, which is based off of yesterday, there are 17 shelter spaces available. I believe 9 are for those that are gendered as male, 5 female, and one mixed. I recognize that adds up to 16, not 17. That's the data that the county has available presently.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It would be great to have the information today, but I'd like the public to know that there are 60 people sleeping at the encampment right now. So there is, if we're going based on the data you just provided us, there isn't enough shelter beds to actually house the people or have enough space for people to move into a shelter space. And I want the public to understand that. I very much understand the public safety concerns that are arising from folks that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness there. They themselves are also experiencing public safety issues themselves, as along with the neighbors in the area. It's not a good location because it's next to a school, but without a plan and without an actual plan to address unsheltered homelessness or a place for people to move into, moving people when there isn't enough shelter capacity is not the way to address unsheltered homelessness. I'm not going to be supporting the motion that is going to be brought forward by my colleagues to move forward with this lawsuit, because I think instead of wasting time and energy into a lawsuit, we can instead move people into a navigation center, move people into a location that is more safe and secure, not only for the folks living at the encampment, but the neighbors in the area. And I think that if we are actually going to address unsheltered homelessness, we need to be a lot more serious than this lawsuit today. Thank you.
Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Payne. As I said earlier, I'd like to make the motion that the Minneapolis City Council hereby authorizes the City Attorney's Office to initiate litigation on behalf of the city against Hamoudi Sabri and any other necessary, related, or responsible parties to enforce the city's authorities and the city's legal and equitable rights and remedies, including but not limited to monetary damages, injunction relief, and any other appropriate relief or order arising from or related to the property located at 2716 Lake Street East and 2932 28th Avenue South.
Second.
Councilmember Vita has moved this motion, and it's been properly seconded. I will recognize Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, President Payne. Just a question for the city attorney in light of the motion being read. Just wanting to get a sense of what you mentioned the state statute. If you could share for public record what statutes are being considered in this litigation matter.
So this litigation matter is considering state statutes both under public health nuisance, traditional nuisance, as well as common law nuisance. Also, there are violations of Minneapolis Code of Ordinances as well that correspond to the state nuisance concerns.
Thank you. And then this goes to City Attorney Anderson. I know just getting clarification about the procedural mechanics of this decision. I think Councilmember Chavez raised the question around if how did this request come about? You mentioned the client. Essentially, you're here, or the city attorney's office is here to serve the clients, and you all then did your research and brought forward this request. I just would like clarity on when you mention client, are you talking about city broadly, administrative departments, essentially who submitted the request that authorized you to move forward and ultimately ask us for authorization?
Council President, council members, so the enforcement authority under ordinance lies with the administration, and so that's who we work with, to determine what the authorities are and whether those authorities are sufficient. Again, here they were not. We did legal research, and then we need to come to the council as the governing body to authorize suit.
Okay. And just for clarity, is there, or also public record, is this the only property that is considered a public nuisance under that state statute that the city is considering at the time?
Council President, Councilmember Wansley, this is the only property that is considered to be a public health nuisance, and I'm not aware of anything with respect to any other properties.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I shared this with colleagues. I really look forward to working with you all to really think through how a statute like this could be leveraged to address other properties in our respective wards that we know likely might fall under the qualifications for that same statute, so that apparently we have the option to take litigative corrective measures, as we probably have struggled to get those properties up to proper standard for not only the residents around the community, but residents even residing in some of those properties. I just wanted to also make a quick comment too around this action. I think, as another colleague mentioned, feels very disingenuous in many ways, especially when we know that this body has really embraced an approach towards a housing first model. We know that is the effective way in addressing and reducing homelessness in the city, and we've worked very diligently and closely with the administration to bring forward funding proposals to support that goal. And right now we're being asked to essentially support an escalation amongst the mayor's administration to target a property owner for doing, in many ways, what I've heard some of my residents share of what we have failed to do ourselves in actually addressing homelessness in a meaningful way. And the ways in which we have not shown up has been around, just even recent weeks, seeing the mayor propose cutting the emergency housing vouchers, which we established with very consistent partnership with the Hennepin County, with the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, which would have had the potential of reducing homelessness in our city up to 30% by their own estimations. And that is in alignment with a national proven record around housing first that did get chronically unhoused people in our county, in other cities across the country, into permanent housing, and had wraparound services to make sure that they were able to give or be given the tools to lead healthy, productive lives. So in one aspect, is very hypocritical to say that we are doing everything that we can, where we're literally seeing the mayor's administration also propose eliminating what we know to be effective solutions towards addressing this. So I know regardless of the outcome of today's vote, this body is committed to figuring out how to do data-backed and advancing effective solutions that's grounded in a housing first approach, as opposed to continuing on just rubber stamping the mayor's eviction encampment and closures approach that only just moves people from one block to another and actually has not gotten us closer some 5, 6, 7 years later towards actually reducing homelessness in our city. So I just want to note that for the public record, and thanks to the staff for providing clarity on how we have a legal basis for today's action.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Council President, this gets riskier for the vulnerable people living in this encampment and everyone living and trying to go to school around it, and our employees that work to proactively and may need to reactively respond to it. I'll note we've been in discussion since approximately 9:45 this morning, and to that end, I'd like to call the question.
Second.
Councilmember Palmisano has called the question. It's been properly seconded. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Rainville. Aye. Councilmember Chavez.
Please.
No.
Councilmember Vito.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
No.
Councilmember Wansley.
Nay.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
No.
Councilmember Osman.
No.
Vice President Shugtai.
Nay.
President Payne.
Nay.
There are 4 ayes and 7 nays.
That motion fails. I will recognize Councilmember Osman.
Thank you so much, Council President. And I do want to, I just don't have any question, but I do have an opinion as someone who represents the ward that has the most encampments. One time we had dozens of encampments after the COVID. Let's just be clear. We have failed our residents. There are a lot of people that are suffering, that live on the streets in the cold winter. We have experienced many deaths, many overdoses, many challenges living outside. As you can imagine, it's not a place for anybody to live, especially being called a first world country. It's unacceptable. And the city and the government and county and state has a responsibility to take care of the most vulnerable population and be genuine and treat them a humane way possible. With that being said, I dealt with many encampments, worked with the staff, worked with the administration, and in this case, I understand why the city want to close, because of the safety and health of well-being of the individuals that live there. But at the same time, we're not holding the same standard as a city-owned land. I have seen and I have experienced city-owned lands that have been occupied, that the administration refused to provide porta potties when I requested. The trash was not being picked up. It was very unsafe. And let me just be very clear and specific to that location. It's the Nanakasi 13th Avenue South and East 23rd Street. That has continued. It started in August 2023, and it was closed January 4th, 2024. That's like 6 months of ongoing issue by the city-owned land. The city has abandoned it, and the administration did not have the same energy they have today with Sabri's property to close down that area. They let it grow from 10 people to almost 200 people. They have refused, and the city has not taken the right responsibility and enforced the law by themselves. They have not issued a nuisance themselves. I'm not aware of any regulatory services giving seabed nuisance that they need to clear this up. So are we holding the same accountability as the residents of Minneapolis, the taxpayers of Minneapolis? I think my argument, that's the question I have. I am someone who don't want anybody to live outside. And I think everyone deserves a housing, but the reality is there isn't a lot of housing available. We continue to offer shelters that are not there. You know, when you call the shelter, if you don't call 9 a.m., it's out. So we're sharing this information saying that we're offering shelters. We actually, when we offer shelters are not available. And of course, there are folks that are, that have accept services, and we're grateful to that, and we continue to provide it. But my overall call is, instead of just focusing on a small solution, is that might be temporary relief for the residents that live there and the folks that live there, what is the long-term plan? Are we going to continue to, lawsuit everyone that in the city of Minneapolis? Are we going to bring? What is the thing we're trying to set it up? That's my question. And also, what is the city responsibility of taking care of its own land? You know, the solution I have seen for the city is put barricades in the city-owned land, and that costs a lot of money. And when we have encampments there, are we holding the same standard as we're holding Mr. Hamoudi and their property? So that is just a bigger question that stands for me, and I think that that we got to come up with better solution than just stamping, you know, and putting a bandage in a solution that might give us a week temporary, and we have another one popping up. What is the next? It's going to cost the city a lot of money, and the city attorney job will be super busy in the next winter and next few months coming. So that is the question that's the statement I have. And as the leaders, we have to take responsibility and do better for our city. And also, we have to call out the missing elephant here, which is the county and the state. They cannot watch us struggle and deal with a lot of homelessness and encampments popping up everywhere. City of Minneapolis has to be the lead of taking that and finding hopefully a better solution where we provide services, where we treat humane way at the same time, where we keep public safe and our community healthy and safe by making sure that we're not creating an environment that's hazardous to everyone else that live in our city. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, President Payne. I guess I wasn't going to speak to this, but it's just becoming overwhelmingly clear. I mean, this is a disingenuous conversation that we're having here. This is a national crisis. This is not a simple South Minneapolis problem. This is a fentanyl problem that we need to address as a humane way of dealing with this. But this issue continues to create public health and public safety issues for our community and the residents that live there. And it is our responsibility to address that particular issue, which is what this motion intends to do. We can't force people to accept support. Many people have accepted support. Many people have not. And so consequently, trying to compare this issue to the Camp Nino Kasi, which was met with resistance at every single step, all the 8 or 9 times that we tried to close this in a 6-month period, was met with resistance until it exploded. So I'm not even sure if we're talking about the same thing. Because, yeah, I'm not experiencing the same sorts of comments that are being made. What I'm experiencing is the city tries to address the issue and people say, no, we don't want to do that. And we have to be factual in our conversations. My question was for the city attorney, is there anything in the statute that requires us to act? It's a state statute that governs the entire state. Does it require us to act?
Madam City Attorney.
Council President, Councilmember Jenkins, what do you, I'm not totally sure that I understand your question in terms of whether the city is required to enforce on public health nuisances, or in terms of whether the city council is required to act on
My
authorizing
question
litigation.
is, we have identified a state statute that does allow the city to bring forth a lawsuit to address a public health crisis. The question is, does it require us to act, or is it simply a tool that we can decide to use if we want to?
So, Council President, Council Member, I'm going to answer, and if Assistant City Attorney Enslin wants to clean up anything I say, my understanding is under that particular statute, it authorizes the city to take enforcement actions up to and including court action, but is not it's not a mandatory on behalf of the city. It's an authorizing statute.
Thank you.
The attorney, it does articulate that the health department has the purview to declare a public health nuisance upon an investigation by that department. It also does require that, to the extent that there's a public health nuisance identified, that the city takes steps to enforce the abatement of that nuisance. So the city does have obligation to enforce the state health code. And to the extent that there's a public health nuisance declared by the health department that meets the standard under the public health nuisance statute, the city does have to take measures to remediate and abate that situation.
So that is
Thank you. That answers.
Clarification and correction of what I said. Attorney Enslin is correct.
All right. Thank you. So it is our responsibility to address this. And yeah, that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
I'm in queue for Councilmember Vita, who is having trouble with her queue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for those comments, Councilmember Jenkins. I do think as leaders we have a responsibility to the residents, and that responsibility is when we're told that something is a public health crisis, that we should address it, and that is exactly what this is. As I've said to my colleagues, I've been there several times, and the public health crisis is visible. You can smell it. There are many things that is happening there that it's not safe, not only for the people that are there, but the people that are around it. This encampment is extremely close to a school where children, like the owner, could, feel like a good Samaritan and want to go over and help and expose themselves to things that we don't want to happen. The other thing is, I think, this idea of misinformation, I want to just be clear about the number of people there versus the number of beds. Everyone in these camps don't always want to go to shelter. So just because there's 60 people there and there's whatever number of beds that have been said available doesn't mean we don't have shelter for everyone who wants shelter. It's false information to say that because 60 people are there that we need to have 60 beds at shelter or, some sort of housing for everyone that's there. I mean, the dealers and the predators are there too that most of the time, in my experience, have had somewhere to go. This is just a hotbed for those sort of people to come and prey on folks who are suffering from addiction. So I think we got to stop using these numbers, manipulating the numbers. If there's 60 people there, it's not a guarantee that all 60 of those people are in need of some form of housing or treatment, for that matter. And so, let's be clear on who needs the help and get people the services we need. I appreciate the mayor for bringing this before the council because it is for us to make a decision on. I don't want people who are suffering from addiction to be criminalized. And there's a way for us to do that. It's an unfortunate way, but there's a way for us to do that, and that's why I made the motion, and I hope the motion is supported.
Vice President Chugtai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think like most of my colleagues here and our counterparts in the administration, I believe that unsheltered homelessness is a public health crisis. I believe in the importance of treating people who are going through this experience with humanity and with dignity. I believe in a public health centered solution to this very complex and complicated crisis. And I'm really struggling with the solutions that are offered here today, because humanity is not a lawsuit. Dignity is not a lawsuit. And concern for public health and public well-being is not found in a lawsuit. Housing and meaningful wraparound services are the solution. A solution really here is not a lawsuit. Just today, we learned that there are 33 people that we know are living in this encampment that are ready to enter into shelter, that are ready to enter into more permanent housing solutions. And just as of today, there are 16 shelter beds available. So really, what we are talking about here is either rubber stamping the establishment of a new encampment because there just isn't enough space for people to go, or I don't know what. Continuing with the status quo either way, though, because at the end of the day, I'm not seeing the path forward, led by this administration, supported by our partners at the service provider and governmental agency level, to ensure that every person who is living in this encampment has a safe and stable and dignified place to go. And closing down this encampment isn't going to prevent a new one from opening up when there just isn't enough space for people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll first start off by saying that, one, I was disappointed that the discussion in closed session was cut short, and I know that was a decision that my colleagues collectively made, but I am disappointed by that decision. And I'm also disappointed in remarks made saying that our conversation is disingenuous. Quite frankly, there hasn't been a time and place for this conversation that's been given. The conversation about addressing unsheltered homelessness in the city of Minneapolis is constantly avoided until we come into emergency situations. This council in 2023, in December of 2023, declared that unsheltered homelessness was a public health emergency. We have warned that this would happen over and over again. We have sent letters, we have showed up, we have requested that we come together with community groups to address the situation. There have been different efforts to form different working groups with council members, policymakers, that I think should be a part of the conversations with staff and community leaders if we're ever going to move the solutions forward for a short-term, mid-term, long-term plan to address unsheltered homelessness. But we have been consistently told that we can't be a part of those conversations. There was a potential for a formation of a working group earlier this year when we were called together by Indigenous leaders. And I had made the suggestion, okay, why don't we have a third-party liaison between the county, state, and city? And I think it's also important that elected leaders are a part of this because we represent constituents and we also have to make policies. And a lot of people took that in good faith, but what it turned into is a working group where we were cut out. And now they're proposing recommendations that are supposed to come, I don't know when. And that is really disappointing, and I think it's endemic of this issue because we are constantly on this wheel of trying to figure out how we solve this problem. And the question that I have, that is a rhetorical question, I don't need an answer from the attorneys, is when's the next lawsuit going to be? When are we going to do this again? Which school is going to be next that we're going to have people in front of that are in need of addiction services, that are in need of housing? And also, once this encampment is disbanded, where are we moving the public health crises to and the people that are impacted by it? Probably into different neighborhoods, and there's a predictability to that because this happens over and over again. We've seen it. It's been documented by the press. I appreciate the press for documenting it as closely as they have because it is an issue. And so to say that this is a solution today, it's not. It's a Band-Aid. It's doing what we've always done as the city of Minneapolis, and it is shameful because we're not guaranteed a difference. I, as a policymaker, have advocated for safe outdoor spaces, for creating a navigation center. I moved $100,000 as an item that was unanimously supported to take Minnesota Indigenous Women's Resource Center that created a pop-up warming center that was acting as a navigation hub to get that funding because they were doing it from crowdsourced funding. And we're like, no, we need to save lives for people that are outside in the cold. And also, this is a space where people are actually accepting resources and accepting housing, because when you're in an encampment and you're around all of these different things that are impacting your public health, and you're also not in the right state of mind, you're not in the best position to say, yeah, I'm going to accept resources right now. You need a place where you feel safe, you feel clean, you feel heard, you have some trusted relationships there. And of course, there are people who are service resistant. That absolutely does exist. But there are models that are effective that help people who are service resistant, like Avivo Village Tiny Homes. And I'm not saying let's build an Avivo Village Tiny Homes in 20, 30 days. We should go towards it, but a navigation center that follows that example would certainly be helpful. And in the questions that I asked, I got no information on the number of people in the 61 days of the duration of this encampment that have accessed detox or addiction services successfully. No idea of how many housing vouchers went out because that information wasn't given. Was shared that the only things to mitigate health impacts was some needle pickup, trash pickup, and all in partnership with people in our community who volunteered to put that together. And a lack of creativity and vision. I disagree with the property owner not letting the city in to provide porta potties and hand washing stations and water. I think people deserve that, and it's important for the cleanliness and the safety of every person in there. But there's ways to be creative out that. That's why we have like a public right of way. And I would say this was also stated in some conversations as a last resort. I do not think we have tried everything that we could try to mitigate this situation. And again, what I believe, based off of so much evidence from other encampment clearings, is we're just going to form other encampments. And it's just going to move the problem around, and we're not actually solving it. And there isn't a time and place for this conversation because the table is never set for us to have that conversation, to have a real working group. So we have to do it in these moments of crisis and emergency and high controversy, where our community members are going to watch, and everything that we're going to talk about is going to be relegated to a single headline or a press release that sanitizes the situation and neatly puts it into a box. And I'm tired of it because we're failing our city. We just are, housed and unhoused. We're just completely failing our city over and over again. And what would solve it is just literally a plan for action, including all voices to do it. A navigation center, safe outdoor spaces, following the lead of other cities like Denver, the House 1,000 initiative. The list goes on, because we've been working on this for a really long time. We've moved around funding to work on this. How do we get 3 more MIWRCs in our city to be effective? And then the last thing I'll just say about this conversation about encampments occurring in private property versus city property, and we keep on pointing to Nanakasi. I'll just take Nanakasi out of the conversation. In the last 2 encampment reports, there have been 13 different encampments on city parcels. One of them in Ward 12 in 2024 that I had asked for resources over and over again and didn't get it, and it led to 3 people dying. So I'll give my time back, but that's what I need to say.
Councilmember Osmond.
Yeah, just coming back to the double standard, the city-owned land versus a private property. I do want to just highlight one more time that I have requested, and I have emails to prove, for porta potties to be provided in Nanakasi, which was rejected. 6 months. There was no porta potties at all. And now we're telling Mr. Hamoudi to provide porta potties. So the double standard is my question. The master enforcer of the law and the legal is Mayor Jacob Frey. He can enforce the policies and laws that we have in the city of Minneapolis. He can tell the staff to act this way, or he can just stay quiet. And nuisance has been an issue with every encampment that pops up everywhere. So just the double standard as a city, that is my my statement and my question. Why is the double standard? Why are we not holding ourselves accountable the same way we're holding private property accountable? And another question leads to, why are we not holding accountable MnDOT? You've seen under the bridges. You have seen under the bridge 50 people standing there for the last, few years. Are we suing the state? House of Balls has people lost their life right on the Riverside behind this U.S. Bank Stadium. Have we sued them yet? Have we done? 2 people lost, and the only way the governor has acted, or the state have acted, is that because I put out a statement that 5 news outlets picked it up, that I say if this was somewhere in other city outside the metro, he would have acted quickly. But this was the Riverside. He abandoned and forgot about that people live here and people exist here. So the double standard is the one I'm going to continue to come back. If we're enforcing the law, we have to enforce all laws, not just the ones that looks good for the administration. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Palmisano.
I am in queue for Councilmember Vita, who had trouble getting into it. This will be her second time speaking.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. President Payne, I just wanted to quickly say that, I think we're not holding the county responsible for what they're responsible for here. We were told by our staff that there's been 30-plus housing vouchers offered and also addiction services, and the county has those numbers. Staff didn't have those numbers available today, but that it's clear to me that there's been some coordination of resources in this location, and the county is doing their part and the city has a part. I don't think it's fair to staff and to those of us who really do want a solution to not acknowledge that things are happening there, that people are offering services. It might not be the city, and that's because the city doesn't have, we're not in the housing business. The county is, and they have a lot of money to do so. So if 30-plus housing vouchers were offered, I'd love for maybe our president to talk to the president of the county board about what the coordinated services look like and bring that back to the council instead of just faulting the city for not doing something. This is a coordinated effort. The only way we're going to get through this on the right side of this is with all of us working together and all of us taking responsibility for our parts in this. It has been told to us that it is a public health crisis. That is the problem here. It's nothing to fight over here. I don't want to be responsible for a public health crisis. And so I'd love for maybe our president to get with the president of the county board and find out exactly what services have been given or offered or what services are available from the county. The agency who has a lot of money, way more money than we do. Maybe they want to, or maybe they have in the works this center that some of my colleagues are talking about. We don't know, but it's really disingenuous to have these kind of conversations when that conversation hasn't been had first.
I see Council Jenkins next in queue, but she is not there. I'll throw myself in queue just to go through the numbers. Director Valeska has referred to the public dashboard on Hennepin County. I got that up right here. Over the last 30 days, the most number of beds that were available were 34. That was at 10 a.m. But when you talk to service providers, we know that the numbers dwindle as we get closer and closer to evening. So the usual most accurate number for the day is going to be the 10 p.m. number. That number hovers between 0 beds and 12, with an average of 3, because most days of the week it is 0 beds available by 10 o'clock at night. So we have a math problem here fundamentally, which is we've got 60 folks that are staying at this encampment overnight. We have an ongoing relationship with about 28 of those folks. And there's an additional 30 folks that we suspect are more transient and may have actual shelter and are spending their days at the encampment but leaving at night. So that leaves 32 people that are unaccounted for. If we move forward with this and evict this encampment and have a perfect placement for the 28 that we have an existing relationship with, that leaves 32 people without shelter. That doesn't feel acceptable to me as a solution to just say, well, we'll just revisit this conversation again with those 32 people. In a week's time, in a month's time, in a year's time, we need to have something that's more durable than that. But I tried to buy some time for Councilmember Jenkins. Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, President Payne. Yeah, I just figured I'd get in queue to finish my remarks and come in a second time. So just going back to numbers, I appreciate you sharing that, like, the numbers are just not adding up here, like shelter beds versus number of people, especially people who are willing to accept services, right? There is a number of people who are willing or in the process, and that doesn't line up. And also we understand that shelter doesn't mean, oh, you're going to be in shelter for like weeks at a time. We all have to understand that it's like a short amount of time at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and then you have to go about your day, and then you have to get at the back of the line and try to hope for shelter again, right? It's very difficult. It's a tough situation, especially if you're a family. Like, family shelters are really, really full. Going back to numbers of encampments on private property versus city property, this encampment has been here for 61 days. And then on city properties, with our own data that's been collected in the last 2 encampment reporting ordinances, there is an average of at least 66 days for an encampment on a city-owned property, barring an outlier, and the lowest being 5 days and the highest being 153 days. And I think we need to sit with that. And I also need to say that getting to this level of needing to do a lawsuit and not looking at housing as an option and figuring out what other options that we have is a real clear example that this is a policy failure and a jurisdictional coming together failure in like the highest order. There have been many opportunities in the last few years to address this, and if Hennepin County, we can virtually end veteran homelessness. Reducing unsheltered homelessness in a significant amount should not be this difficult. I really think it's a level of lack of urgency, jurisdictions willing to work together, and policy vision being taken seriously and being implemented. Because willing to move the money around, willing to write the legislation. In my own ward, I have put together pop-up service provision tents with other partners when I was not getting support from the city administration. So there are things that can be done here, and it's really disappointing that we're in this situation, and I think we're setting such a I don't even have the adjective for it, such a precedent. And I wonder what will happen if we come back to a similar moment. And I hope we don't have to, because by that point, maybe we would have actually tried to make an effort to end homelessness and not just have it be something that we say to get people's hopes up. I hope we actually put the care, the time, and the intention to do so, because our residents deserve better. And if the goal is to abate a public health nuisance, then create it with the potential of creating multiple more throughout our city without a plan in place for people to go is not how we get to that.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, President Payne. I'm not sure if we've tried everything. I do know in 2018, 2019, we tried a navigation center. We spent $3 million on a navigation center to address the wall of forgotten natives. And literally all of the agencies that would run a navigation center said to us, they will never do it again. So, no, we probably haven't tried everything, but we have tried many things, including building the Avivo Center to address this issue. So I'm just hoping people bring forward solutions. What is the solution? Can you bring that forward? And we can try that. Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Chavez.
Council President Payne, the solution would be to, instead of doing this lawsuit that is only going to move people to the next block, under bridges, into the Phillips community, instead of doing something that's not going to house the people that are living in the encampment, is to instead move people into a new location that is safe, that is secure, that has a service tent, that has our service providers on site helping people navigate addiction, mental health, and housing resources, helping people move into permanent and stable housing. That is a solution to this issue. It is about the political will, though. I'm going to be very clear. Thank you. And I support that. And I would support that. I would love for you to support it too, Councilman Jenkins, if I bring it forward. Great, let's do it then. Instead of bringing forward this lawsuit, let's move people into actual housing. Let's move people into a navigation center. Let's bring forward that action. Would you support that if I bring that proposal forward? Thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion that is before us. Resolutions.
This is a motion to approve the litigation made by Vita, seconded by Palmisano. Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
No.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Wands is absent. Councilmember Jenkins.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
No.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Vice President Shugtai.
Nay.
President Payne.
Nay.
There are 6 ayes and 4 nays.
That motion carries, and that completes all the business before us. And seeing nothing else before us, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.